You will need a thermometer, a chart to track your information on, and a vagina. Peace and welcome back to my channel. I'm Esrika Slim, for those of you who don't know, and I'm into everything health, whether it be herbs, whether it be fitness, whether it be diet. That's me. So today I wanted to talk about a hormone-free, chemical-free, easy and cheap method of pregnancy prevention. I just noticed that a lot of women, including myself, were like, the only route to go for, you know, birth control and that kind of thing is the pill, is the coil, is these synthetic chemicals that we put into our body, that in the short run can give us awful side effects as well as the long run. And a lot of the time they're not telling us that, you know, we're putting these pills and substances into our bodies. These synthetic chemicals are adding to the toxins within our body. It's causing toxins to build up. It's stopping the natural biochemistry of our bodies from occurring. So, you know, in the long run, this could even have effects such as infertility. I don't want to put these synthetic chemicals into my body. And I understand everyone has their own reasons. Now, sometimes it's about getting to the root cause of the problem. So some women use the coil, for example, for PCOS. And, you know, this is just covering the symptoms. This is covering the problem. It's not actually addressing, okay, why is this happening, and getting to the root of that in order to treat it and cure it properly. Instead, it's just being covered up and the problem is still continuing. So, you know, a lot of the time, as much as we might have our own reasons, we need to do some research. We need to understand what's actually wrong with us and figure it out to actually heal ourselves, maybe with herbs, maybe with lifestyle or diet. These principles of pregnancy prevention are based upon the menstrual cycle. So it will tell us when to avoid sex or use some kind of barrier method. It will let us know when you can have sex, or because, you know, you're not that fertile. It can even let you know when to plan intercourse if you want to conceive a child, because a lot of the time women are having problems conceiving purely because they don't actually know when they're ovulating. So they might be having intercourse at the wrong time of the month where there's no actual egg available to be fertilized. So, you know, it's about knowing your body and all the signs that our body is expressing. So today I'm going to be talking about the Fertility Awareness Method, which is FAM for short. There's also something called the Rhythm Method. However, this is not the same as the Fertility Awareness Method. This is very unreliable. So what I'm talking about today is not that. Now, as women, we are only fertile a few days of our cycle. Now, our average cycle is around 24 to 36 days. We are only fertile for a few days. Men produce up to 300 million sperm a day. Okay, they're fertile every single day. So we need to start looking at how we're dealing with this pregnancy prevention. So first we need to understand the cycle and how it actually works, so we know what signs to look out for and why. Okay, so basically each woman has a cycle of 24 to 36 days, and that basically consists of an egg, a mature egg, being released from the ovaries and into the fallopian tubes. Once it's there, that means it's available for sperm to come and fertilize it. However, if there is no sperm that month to fertilize the egg, then the lining of the uterus will break down and shed, and this is the bleeding. Now, in that shedding is the egg that will be released because it's not been fertilized. We haven't needed it that month. One important key thing to remember is that the egg, once it's released, only survives for 24 hours. That's it. After that, it disintegrates. However, in rare cases where 2 eggs are released, then, you know, they will have a survival time of 48 hours, because 24 at 24 is 48, and then the whole cycle will repeat and start again. So during this cycle, at each stage, a hormone is released specific to what is happening at that point. Now, it's the hormone being released that has an effect upon our body, and the effect upon our body is the signs that we can see to how fertile we are. So it's around the time that an egg is released that we become most fertile, because that's when the sperm can fertilize it. Okay, if there is no egg, then no fertilization can happen, and there's no chance for pregnancy. So now let's have a talk about the 3 important signs that I look out for each month, and that will let you know whether you're fertile, whether you're very infertile, or whether you're starting to become fertile. And once you know this, you know when to avoid sex or use a barrier method. So we don't have to guess anymore, because our body will tell us what it is. Now, it is a very easy method, but it does require time to just learn your body and understand it. It's like, learning to drive a car. At first, it may seem like there's quite a bit of things to remember, but when you start, it's fine. Like, it's easy. You know what I mean? You just do it naturally without having to think. Okay, so the 3 signs that we're looking for. The first sign is the quality of cervical fluid. Now, cervical fluid is what we would call discharge. Okay, so men produce semen. They can produce semen at any time, and that's their kind of fluid, and that's because they're fertile all the time, so they can always produce that. However, we're only fertile for a few days of the month, so we will only produce that at certain times for a certain amount of time during the month. The cervical fluid is to nourish the sperm and to also allow it to swim well. Okay, so you will have noticed that at different times of the month, or you may not have, but at different times of the month, we experience different consistencies of this discharge or cervical fluid. And there's 3 different types. Well, 4 kind of. So the first one is just dry, like there's nothing there. It will just dissolve on your finger, like nothing will stay or nothing's coming out into your knickers. Next, you've got sticky or crumbly, and that's just self-explanatory. Now, this consistency is extremely hard for the sperm to swim in to get to the egg. It's not a very fertile quality cervical fluid, but it lets you know that you're starting to become more fertile. Yeah, so in these dry and sticky conditions, the sperm will survive for up to 2 hours, because it's not hospitable for the sperm to live in. It has to travel, it has to be able to live and actually get to the egg. Now, if it's dry, if it's sticky or crumbly, these are the least favorable conditions for the sperm. Now, when it starts to get creamy or lotiony or milky, this is when you're starting to become more fertile now, and it's a lot easier and it's better for the sperm to swim in and survive. And then we've got the 3rd type of consistency, which is when it's wet and slippery. Okay, so when it's wet and slippery, this is when you are most fertile. This is the best condition for the sperm to be able to swim in to meet the egg. At this time, you avoid sex. During your cycle, you will start to learn how to distinguish them easier, and you will start to notice the difference between them. Sometimes it may come into your pants, sometimes you may have to just feel for it. The reason that this symptom shows up is because when the eggs are developing and maturing in your ovaries, they release a hormone called estrogen, and this hormone promotes the maintenance and building of the lining of the uterus, prepares your womb for pregnancy, and also produces the mucus for sperm to travel in. After the most slippery, high quality cervical fluid shows, you'll be dry the next day. Yeah, so it's literally only for a short amount of the cycle that you will start to get discharge or cervical fluid. Also, one thing to note is that the wetness that you produce during sex, and also any lubricants, they are not the same environment or quality as this discharge or cervical fluid that we're talking about, so you don't have to worry about that. They're completely separate. Sperm won't be hospitable in these environments like how I'm talking about this cervical fluid. So sperm cannot actually survive in dry conditions or sticky conditions very long because it's not nourishing it, and it just gets stuck. It can't swim very well, it can't swim freely to actually get to the egg. In the more fertile quality cervical fluids, the sperm can survive up to 5 days. Okay, so up to 5 days it can survive, which means when you start seeing that this fertile quality cervical fluid, yeah, you don't want to have sex because it can survive in that condition for 5 days, and then when the egg is released it could still be there and be ready to be fertilized. So we'd start charting our types of fluid, and when we start to see the cervical fluid, we would chart it and then avoid sex or use a barrier method. So when it's dry we can do what we're doing, but when it's wet and slippery we stay away. We don't do it, or we use a barrier method. So the second thing we need to look out for then is the basal body temperature upon waking. So basal body temperature is just your temperature at rest, when you're not doing physical activity, not eating, things like that. So usually you'll take this as soon as you wake up around the same time each morning and just chart it, just log your temperature. Now literally it takes less than 30 seconds. You just get your thermometer and put it under the tip of your tongue and wait for the beep, and it will let you know your temperature. Now throughout your cycle you'll have fluctuating temperatures. You'll start to see the pattern that your body exhibits and the temperatures that it generally is. Now after ovulation has occurred, when the egg has been released, the temperature will go up and you'll be able to see the difference on the chart. Let me show you. The temperature has gone up here. So when the temperature goes up, that means the egg has been released, which means for 2 days you're going to abstain from sex, or you're going to use a barrier method. And that is because, as I said before, the egg only survives for maximum 48 hours. So we give it that 48-hour leeway to allow the egg to die, to disintegrate. After that 2 days, on that 3rd day, we are now free to do what we're doing. We're now infertile again because the egg has disintegrated. There is no more egg. So if any sperm was to come, there is no egg for it to actually fertilize. Okay, so pregnancy cannot occur. That is due to the progesterone hormone, because that is the hormone that's released after the egg has been released from its ovaries. So that's why we wait the 2 days for the egg to die. The progesterone hormone is a heat inducing hormone. It causes your temperature to go up considerably. And this is another one of the signs that we'll look out for when seeing if we're fertile or not. So this is the sign that shows us we've ovulated now. It's just a matter of taking your temperature every morning and around the same time. And it's really not that difficult. You just make sure you've got your thermometer on the floor, on the bedside, right next to you, so you know as soon as you wake up you're doing it. Each month you will start to see that there's a pattern. So that is also a good reason to track your cycle, because you see when you're ovulating. Now say that you have your ovulation is delayed, that means your whole cycle is going to be longer, which means you might start your period later. Now a lot of the time us females may get worried thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't started my period, am I pregnant, this, that. But sometimes it may just be those factors, environmental or mental or physical factors, causing the delay. So that's what another good reason why it's good to chart. So the third thing you need to look out for is the cervical position. So the position of your cervix, which is basically the bottom of your uterus. Now sometimes, if you've noticed ladies, it may feel uncomfortable during intercourse, and that is because each month, well during the month, the position of your cervix will change, and even the feel of it will change based on how fertile you are. So this is purely because when you're first starting to become fertile, your cervix will make changes to prepare yourself for pregnancy. So if we take the word SHOW as our acronym, these are the things to look out for when you're feeling for your cervix. So S stands for soft, so you will feel that it's soft. When you're fertile, the cervix is soft, whereas when you're infertile, it will feel a bit more harder, like the end of your nose Yeah, it will have a bit of a more stiffer feel to it. The next thing is H, which means if it's high. So if the cervix, if you feel your cervix and it's high up, then that's also an indication that you're fertile. If it's open, usually you'll feel it like a little dimple. The reason that the cervix opens up is it kind of acts like a biological gate for sperm, to allow the sperm to easily pass through. Yeah. And then W is wetness, so that's kind of what we're talking about with this cervical fluid. So if you use the acronym SHOW, basically you'll get one of your fingers and feel for your cervix. Now this might take a few months to kind of understand and get properly, but when you do, you'll understand exactly what to feel for. This is an optional method though, so the first two methods are very reliable. However, if you want to add a third one in just to make sure, or just to be certain, or just to double check, then you can use this one, but it is optional. And obviously if you've got fake nails, it might be a bit of a problem actually feeling for it. So yeah, best time to check is just before ovulation, when the cervical fluid or the discharge starts to build up. This is around the time that the cervix will open up, become high and become soft. For me now, it's just second nature. I know what I'm checking for, I know when I'm checking, and now because I've charted it so much, I know now when I'm ovulating. You know what I mean? As long as I've had a general regular month, I know around roughly when I'm going to be ovulating. So basically, out of the three methods that I've listed, these will show you the signs in your body to let you know if you're fertile or infertile at that point in the month. As a precaution, 5 days before ovulation you want to avoid intercourse, because sperm can live for up to 5 days in fertile quality cervical fluid. It can help you see if there's any abnormalities if you're not even ovulating each month. It helps you see if you've got any hormonal imbalances, and it just helps you to understand the changes that's occurring through your body. Now there may also be secondary signs of fertility, such as mid-cycle spotting, sharp pains in the abdomen when the egg actually ruptures through to be released. You know, you may also experience different symptoms which you can note down on your chart as well. This is my chart, and as you can see, I just put what I need to put on there. So I'll put the times, I'll put the days, you've got to join them up, and any notes about how I'm actually feeling, the type of mucus or discharge that's being produced. So ladies, I really hope you actually learn something from this, and we don't have to guess anymore. We don't have to guess when we're fertile and when we're not. So, you know, I really think that as a female species, we need to start learning about our body. We need to start taking the natural route, because all of these chemicals coming into our body is not the way forward. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like and drop a comment if you want to see the detailed process of how to actually execute the fertility awareness method. Please share it to someone who may benefit from this. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and peace.